Hi everyone, and welcome to Design Studio 3, our industry lecture this week. We're incredibly excited to welcome Studio Messa, Kate Blank and Pete Pengly, who are coming to us from their studio on William Street in Darlinghurst. I would actually, before we begin today, I'm sorry, we've got a slight little technical issue. I'm just going to quickly pause my camera. I will be back to you very, very quickly. Sorry guys, this is what happens when you're on a live event. Thanks everyone, sorry about that, slight little hitch, but we're back. Okay, so I would like to welcome you all to the UNSW Bachelor of Design Industry Insights Lecture Series for Core Design Studio 3. Before we begin, I know I have quickly introduced Pete and Kate, but I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands upon which our campus stands, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture, and we pay our respects to elders past, present and future. As I mentioned before, we're really excited to welcome Pete Pengly and Kate Blank from Studio Messa. Studio Messa is a multidisciplinary brand experience agency based in London and Sydney. They provide end-to-end strategic collaborative design service, turning ideas into immaculately planned physical, digital and content concepts that inspire curiosity and engage audiences. For you guys as designers, this is a really fantastic opportunity thinking about as you have been working together as design collectives and collaborating together on concepts, to hear about how an industry studio such as Messa, hearing about their multidisciplinary practice and their collaborative practice within industry. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to Pete and Kate, and thank you both so much for your time today talking to the students. Thanks guys.
Thanks Emma, thanks for the introduction and thanks for having us as part of this lecture. It's really nice to be able to talk to you guys and give you a bit of insight about what we do and how we've created our practice. So I might just share a document with you guys that we're going to take you through.
Yeah, we've got a bit of a deck that sort of summarises what we do, how we do it, and some of our past work, which we'll go into in a little bit of detail so you can get a feel for how we work.
Yeah. Okay.
Down.
Okay. So just a few, just the categories through this deck. So who we are, we'll touch on what we do, our work, and a bit of our leadership team. So who we are. Sorry. So we are Curious Minds is our tagline for a studio. We find that curiosity is our compass, and that leads us away from conformity and towards the possibilities that allow us to imagine creative and innovative solutions for our brands. And as Emma said, we work across the events, both in the real and virtual spaces and videography, photography, content, and more recently within the VR and AR worlds.
And our role for our brands is, to create a connection between the brand and their consumer that resonates and really means something for longer than the event lasts, basically.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, from concept to execution really is what we're just touching on. So we do realize the brand's vision in meaningful, inspiring ways. We always like to disrupt and keep things very current so that we can engage audiences in a new way, but leaving them with an enduring impression that they want to share. We are based in Sydney and in London, an in-house team of creative and producers. We work very collaboratively for clients like American Express, Nike and Vogue, Sparley Moat, Hennessy, Canon, and Izzy Miyake and others. So how we work, again, curiosity is our compass, and that leads drive, and we are driven by that innate curiosity and wanting to have a sense of adventure. It's really important for us to establish what we were about as a brand, so that when we were delivering our designs to our brands, we were able to answer their briefs, but do it in our way that was true to us and that came across authentically for very commercial outcomes for our clients.
Yeah, and curiosity was something that we realised that the whole team across all departments shared. Just this, relentless need to seek out more and discover more, and upskill as well.
So yeah, what we do, so we call ourselves designers of experience. We want to elevate the everyday through transcendent experiences, and we exist at the intersection of art, design, and production. And what that means for us is we not only design these experiences and have a great aesthetic approach from a strategic side of the creativity, as well as through to what it looks like, but also understanding technically how to bring that to life and how to make sure that the quality of the production is in line with the creative. And we are creators of content. So about 12 months ago, as a studio, we started getting into the content experiences of content. So we do develop through videography and photography that often bolster up our event designs and our event production. This allows us to ensure that the event itself, whilst on a Friday night for 3 hours, lives on in the digital world, and it creates content for brands to amplify across social channels. So here's just a bit of a list of our top line services of what we do. So campaign strategy and creative direction, concept development, art direction, set design and production, Microsoft development, styling, lighting design and production, photography, videography. We do a lot of venue and location scouting, making sure that the venues that we choose for our events are going to fit our creative vision. Talent procurement across all various types of talent, from music to dancing to just guest speakers, intellects.
Yeah, artists.
Yeah. Technical production, so understanding the technical side of what we're bringing to life. Music creation, broadcasting, and 3D design, especially within AR, VR, and MR, more known as XR, and virtual experiences.
So this is a list of
our current clients.
Yeah, our current client roster. And then we've just pulled out a few of, I guess, our most relevant projects that we're quite proud of and we thought would be most interesting, because they all have an element of collaboration and sort of weaving in different disciplines, as well as that sort of commercial outcome as well. So this one was the American Express Platinum Mirror Walk. This went live at the NGV Gala in 2018, and it was the hero social moment for the event. So it took pride of place. We actually came up with the idea for American Express to own this social moment and also create content to come out of it and be broadcast out, to help sort of leverage their key influencers and their channels, and also just create something spectacular, which was quite a challenge considering the NGV Gala is a really high caliber event where everything is elevated. So we were trying to sort of out elevate the impossible, but we ended up doing a pretty good job, I think. And we also explored some different tech in this, and different things that we'd never done before. So we came up with the idea of creating this mirrored installation, which reflects the American Express Platinum brand. But we made these panels to be motion responsive, kinetic panels that followed you. So it ended up being kind of like a catwalk that you walked through, and those mirrored panels would react to your movement. And we created some bespoke content for the sort of more A-list influencers. In this image, you can see Poppy Delevingne. And we managed to, on the night, edit them and push them out to their, well, it was usually their management, so that they could send that out live while the event was still happening. So there was a lot of moving parts. We had to engage some technical experts as to how to rig.
Industrial designers.
Yeah.
It was actually one of these ones where what makes Studio Messa really, I guess, at the forefront of what we do is that Kate and her team will come to the production team, which is where I sit a bit more, and say, hey, I want to do 20 mirrored panels that will rotate on someone walking through, and we want to hit it with lighting and create content, and we want to have a hanging mirrored ceiling and a stage, and so just go make that work. And so we, as a production team, we literally sit down from scratch and figure out the different suppliers and the different parts that we're going to need to make it happen. And then through a very developed supply chain, we start bringing all the pieces together. So industrial designers, electrical engineering, mirrors and reflection angles to work with the camera guys that were capturing the content, so they weren't actually in the content.
Lighting designers.
Yeah.
As well as our in-house set designers as well.
Yeah.
This one was one that we just started working, I think, like a few hours before the event started, and there were people crying with happiness that it actually
that it worked.
that we actually managed to pull it off. So here's just some examples of like the content and the influencers that shared it online. And
from a brand perspective, you know, the platinum card is for a very elevated individual, but it is an individual product. And one of the challenges was, how do we amplify this to a bit more of a mass market, given that at the NGV there's only going to be at this time 500 guests and then another 500 that come in after the main celebrities. So we heroed the 10 celebrities, the top 10 tier celebrities, to make one piece of content that then was amplified through a media spend by American Express. However, the actual activity was made available to every other guest that came through the NGV. And what we did with them was use a social platform that was taking a video on the day, and everyone's video was the same, but they would step off the catwalk, put their email in, and they would get their own video, and then they were able to share their experience. So it was still a singular experience, which is true to the Amex Platinum Card brand, but we were able to amplify that.
This is just another small element that we added in the last minute.
We were asked to do this, it's 2 days before the actual event.
They decided they wanted an oyster bar, and so we designed this made out of solid blocks of ice, and also suspended an Amex Platinum card within the bar itself. So yeah, they asked for that like 2 days before the event, so that was quite interesting to get across the line. Really
interestingly, with blocks of ice like this, to get the card in there, if you use a saw to get down into it, drop the card in, and then if you fill it with water, it's so cold that that water will then freeze, and then the card is in the ice. Really interesting technically how to figure out to do that.
Yeah. Then we've got Nike Vapor Max, which was one of our first ever events. It was our first ever event at Studio Messa. It's also become sort of one of our most well-known one. It's still one of our favorite events from like client perspective and that sort of thing. Thank you.
So this one was a really interesting one. We got the opportunity to work with Nike through a colleague that had worked with us previously on something else. Nike had been let down by another agency, and we had 4 weeks from brief to execution for this, which is not an uncommon thing to happen in our world. It is quite fast-paced. Especially with Nike, yes. We've had events with Nike where we haven't been given the design assets from the global team until the day before the event, and we still have to resize them and print them ready for the event the next day. So it's interesting turnaround times that we work with sometimes.
Yeah. Once again, the creative team was quite ambitious in what they asked for from production. This is another mirrored installation, but this was at North Bondi Golf Course, so it had to be and on the cliff's edge, so it had to be fully engineered to be outside on uneven surfaces, and also for whatever weather might come through during that time.
We were fortunate, somewhat fortunate, that it was torrential rain for the setup. Then the next day was blue skies for the event, and then torrential rain for the pat down.
Yeah. And the concept behind this, so this was for the Nike Vapor Max, which is known as the pinnacle of air and the lightest of light shoe in their in existence, according to them. But So we wanted to create something that almost appeared like it wasn't there. So that's why we use these mirror surfaces, because it's sort of self-disguising and almost blends in with its background. And then we also, within the space, this whole experience was an influencer seating suite. So it was for influencers to go try on and be gifted these shoes, as well as be educated about it and share their experience, and therefore encourage consumers to purchase. Within the space, we also had some low-hanging haze that sort of stuck to the ground, and you could stand on a plinth, and it kind of seemed like you were standing on a cloud. Made the space feel quite sort of boundless. And then the influencers were taken in a helicopter around, like a short tour over Sydney Harbour, where they're encouraged to take photos of their shoes whilst they were in the air. So all circled back to that really strong brand message, which Nike are so famous for and so good at.
You can see there, actually, in that middle photo, the helicopter had a glass kind of bottom, so the influencers were taking photos as if they were walking on the city and elevated up in the air. Wow. Okay, so the pyramid is what I would say our most challenging production to date. Again, this one from brief to completion was just over 6.5 weeks. There was a massive turnaround, and we exhibited this down at Burrungma in Melbourne, just on the river there, basically working with council to create a community-based event, so anyone could come and watch. But inside, we created a 6-a-side football field where we ran a competition over 7 days. The competition was an amateur competition for most of the part, with a few, I guess, highlight games from professionals that came in. And the whole thing around this was the launch of the new Phantom football boot. That Awaken the Phantom was their tagline.
Yeah, all about precision and using that triangle as that sort of icon. It's also about Nike like to do a lot of activity around reinvigorating the joy of football in young footballers, and making sure that they're like really having fun and enjoying the game, rather than getting too caught up in just training sessions and slogging it out. So they're really active within the football community to create these experiences, which is great.
So yeah, this is the inside. Incredible tech and lighting show. Music by DJ Sippy, one of our local drum and bass queen DJs. With like 7 days of activity. There was food, and on the outside of the pyramid, I think is that in the next. On the outside of the pyramid at night, we actually projection mapped it, which is a really very difficult thing to do on a black canvas, because it absorbs so much light. And also being on an angle and not being direct to the light, we had to adjust the projection angles to make sure that we actually had enough impact from that mapping. And then there was a soundscape design that played around the pyramid, and that ran all through the entire night. So if you came walking that area at 2 or 3 a.m., you'd see this red haze glowing projection mapping of the design collateral from Nike, and this really beautiful soundscape.
Yeah, design. It was quite like a rumbling, mysterious soundscape. So a lot of collaborators on this, as far as the actual like projection mapping and soundscape design and that sort of thing. And also just taking a very collaborative approach with Nike as well. As always, they are obviously one of the most famous brands in the world for a reason, and it's because they're really good at what they do. And so being able to sort of be an extension of their team is really important for them and for us to achieve what they need to achieve. A little bit of a change of pace here now. So this one is Picnic by Shandong. Shandong wanted to celebrate their range. So Shandong is a sparkling wine that is made with the method traditional French, like traditional French way, traditional champagne techniques, but it is all the vineyards are in the Yarra Valley. So they wanted to communicate this to via an experiential campaign. and show the influencers that ended up coming and consumers as well, the value of and how special the drink itself is. So what we did is we brought the Yarra Valley to Sydney, and we wanted to really leverage the idea of like a surprise and delight. That's something that was really visually stunning, on brand for Chandon. And it reflected both the Australian and French elements of the product. So what we did was we used Australian produce within, we did a picnic, which is traditionally, from our research, it originated in France. So we took that idea and created these really beautiful long picnic tables that encourage sharing, which is a big part of their brand, is those shared experiences. And then we served food that was French inspired but made with Australian produce and matched with each of their different product ranges. So this product types within the range, I should say. And so this was aimed to be like a highly photographable installation that was meant to kind of create awe as people entered it, which we did quite successfully. And with something like this, you know, we engaged our florist and gave them quite a, well, I mean, I guess it wasn't a super specific brief to start with, but, you know, we gave them, they're a trusted collaborator of ours. So we briefed.
Probably a really important thing to actually touch on there. So we are great at creative vision and creative strategy, and we do a lot of that. But we do really rely heavily on our trusted partners that understand our vision and understand how to not only bring that to life, but also take it that one step further with their expertise. I think that's a really important thing, to just make sure that you trust the suppliers that know better than you, even though it's your creative vision that they're bringing to life, and giving them that flexibility to bring their style to the table.
Yeah, sometimes when you're I feel like when you're too prescriptive with your collaborators, you can end up with something that maybe falls a little bit short. But when you, and it's hard to do when you haven't worked with them before, but when you find partners that are really great at what they do and they see what you want to achieve and they understand the objectives and the purpose of what you want to do, they're able to just take it and run. And then often we end up like
looking better.
Yeah, we look better, and we end up really like pleasantly surprised and, you know, just as excited as the consumer when we see it all come together.
And you know, running at the pace that we run at, where you've got a month sometimes to turn these things around, and we're doing multiple events at the same time. Those trusted partners save you time and efficiency as a business for us to run.
And once you get that shorthand language with those people as well, like it just makes everybody's life so much easier. So just a few detailed elements within the space. At the end of the tables, we had a bar, because I feel like every alcohol event should have an actual bar. And then we also had like a stage with some live music as well to create some ambience. And we worked with lighting designers to make it feel like it was a transitioning day. So we started off with what's that word? With the light that comes through the leaves. So we made it look like light was shining through the leaves sort of in the afternoon. And then as the event went on, we started to warm the light and make it a bit darker. And it transitioned all the way through to our version of sort of sunset hours, which also spoke to the different occasions in which the Chandon products are sort of designed to be drunk. So by the end of it, it was quite celebratory and an evening sort of atmosphere for the guests.
And we also were able to extend this event with a photo shoot that ended up becoming the collateral for a 6-month media campaign. So again, really looking at how do we offer the client an extension of the spend of an event. An event can be a very expensive process for a brand. When you can attach the digital extension, it becomes much more accessible from an ROI perspective for them, and it makes a lot more sense from a cost perspective.
We also had another more consumer focused extension on this, where Chandon asked their consumers to on Instagram to create their own picnic at home, and it became a competition mechanic. So there was a lot of really beautiful entries of people setting up just their lounge rooms in this sort of Shandon picnic at home style. So that also just encouraged further engagement and interaction between the consumer and the brand.
Canon Rethink. So this was one of our favorite events. Basically, Canon asked us to put on an event in a space where photographers could come and stay overnight and use the camera in a whole different myriad of ways because it is so flexible. And so we were to come up with different unique scenes for these photographers to capture.
Yeah, and we integrated, just what would be, just a lunch, and then created these really beautiful fresh produce centerpieces that allowed for those who were focused on, say, food photography to have something to photograph. So every single touch point was both functional, it was also an element of entertainment, and it was also a set and a scene for them to be able to photograph. So this collection of guests were the first to be able to try the product. So we needed to make sure that we also created scenes that allowed them to explore the benefits and features of the camera, which was like low light functionality and also movement as well. So as you can see, like in this center piece, that was just bar styling, but we went for like very stylized approach with low light to just to make sure every single element and angle was really beautiful and photographable.
We had some great collaborators on this, from the ballerina to the contortionist. That contortionist that you can see there 2 days in a row hung up on that ribbon for almost an hour at each time, which was really exceptional. And we were very fortunate to have her. She was 6 years with Cirque du Soleil, and she came and we literally suspended her in the trees, and she was hanging by her neck and all the rest. And then at night we had our dinner and we had drinks, and then all of a sudden there was a surprise moment where we started letting off colored smoke bombs, and the performers came out and started playing in it. So all the photographers quickly grabbed their camera and ran outside and just started getting these really beautiful action shots. Yeah,
I'm more proud of this one because each of the scenes were also like a really immersive experience, which we were there sort of in amongst it, and we could see that the guests were actually like really genuinely moved by the experience itself, as well as capturing beautiful content. So
we had the brand manager actually cry when the piano was playing with the ballerina, which was quite beautiful.
Yeah.
And this scene here, we actually, when we did our site recce, we found that our site, when we went and saw the site, we found this old burnt out caravan in the middle of the woods that you had to walk a couple hundred meters to get to. And so Kate's team came up with this beautiful idea of having this red rope light that just all of a sudden turned on. And so you'd have to go and then follow it through. And then you came across this post-apocalyptic scene where we had two of our models in full makeup of being, I guess, like zombies and half dead, and they were just moving really, really slowly, and there was this super eerie music playing.
Yeah, it was really atmospheric, and and people could kind of see the glow in the distance and the rope light and hear a little bit of that eerie sound, and they followed it down. And then when you got there, it was so quiet, all you could hear, like other than the soundscape, all you could hear was the clicking of the cameras, because everybody was so in that moment. Which, like, for us, we were just really excited that people, like, it was as successful as what it worked basically. So that's a few of our highlights, and then this is us.
Just from a team perspective, myself as director, Kate as the creative director, we have our head of operations and finance, and Sandra is our head of production. Each one of the ladies here running their own team, and obviously Kate and Sandra were working extremely closely across the delivery of the events.
And that's us.
Yeah, that's a little bit about us.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys. I think what's come across, well, there's so much that you've presented there, but I'm just wondering, do you ever sleep? How do you pull off these projects and these incredible deadlines? And you're saying some of these projects are literally 4 to 6 week turnaround from start to finish. And I guess that is the reality of being a designer in the industry, where you are given these projects and these deadlines, and you have to work together. Do you talk about some of those?
I think there's two things probably with that, Em. I think we really love what we do. First and foremost, we're extremely passionate about it. But also, we are a team of 12 people here, and everyone here is like a family. We consider ourselves extremely tight, to the point where everyone was just super eager to get back to working together so that we could be around each other. We work in that collaborative environment where conversations are happening on the left and the right, and you're kind of hearing a bit of everything, especially from the senior team, and watching the team go about their business on a day-to-day basis. So isolation for us was actually really a massive disruptor. It sort of stopped our flow as a studio. So now that we're back, it's feeling like we're getting back to ourselves a little bit.
Yeah, and the deadlines, yeah, it's one of, I mean, it's one of those things you can't change the time that the event starts. So it's all about just quick thinking, and also finding creative solutions. Things never, ever, 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 ever go to plan. There's always something that goes awry, but being able to solve the problem quickly, and as you know, with the least disruption as possible is a huge skill that every single person on the team needs to have to some degree.
Yeah, and you also, as designers, especially from the creative perspective, you need to know how to choose your battles. Inform the client once of the opinion that differs, kind of push it a second time if you really think they need to hear it. But by the third time, if they're still adamant, you have to give them what they want. Yeah. And sometimes that can be a bit of a blow to the ego around your creative vision for what you see. But at the end of the day, we are a service, and we are being paid to actually service the client. So it's not about us. It's about how we do what we do for them.
And it's also like when you are on site and, you know, choosing your battles as far as like when things do come out slightly differently, sometimes it's better. You know, instead of getting fixated on that, you know, expectation, and just being able to make the calls really quickly of like, you know, that actually still works, even though it's not exactly to the brief. This needs my attention instead.
Yeah, and we deal with temporary execution. You know, if we were building the Taj Mahal, the attention to detail, you have time, you're going to fix it, you're going to make sure that everything is immaculate. But for events, that is not what you're trying to achieve. What you're trying to achieve is, does this feel right? Does this have the right engagement? When I see it, do I feel the right message? Yeah. So knowing what to give up and knowing what to fight for is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What's been interesting about today's process with the students, they've presented today, and they're going to not have a say in the concepts that are chosen for them. And as a designer, being able to sometimes let go of your ideas and be willing for the client to make the decision and guide a number of things, and being able to manage that as a designer is a really interesting process. We've got a couple of questions that are coming in here for you guys. I don't know if you can see them here. The first one, I think the students keep forgetting to put their names in, so we'll have to put it anonymous, was just asking, and some of the presentation has already answered this, but they've put a question here. I was just wondering, how much of yourself do you put into your design?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. I feel like it's less about, it's definitely, for me, it's myself and my designers, what is going to be emotive and evocative. But when it comes down to actual individual design choices, it's more about what works to enhance that experience and that feeling. We've had an event before where it was for Glenmorangie Signet, and we wanted to create a lounge that felt, we were trying to replicate the different tasting notes of the product, and one of the tasting notes was chocolate. So we wanted to create a space that felt really indulgent and somewhere you'd relax, and creamy textures and things like that. And there were some furniture choices that individually, I don't love that chair, but it does exactly what it needs to do, and it works perfectly in the space. So you do need to give up and, like, again, have that big picture point of view of what is the end result you want to achieve.
And I guess that yeah, how much you put of yourself in the design. I guess that's the thing. It's not about the chair. It's actually about the design of the experience. And that is definitely coming from yourself and coming through interpreting what that strategy should be for that brand.
And the emotional response you want from the guest or viewer.
Yeah. I can go through these, Em, if you like. There's a few here.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, guys.
So,
you can see them coming up in there's quite a few now coming in, which is fantastic.
What sort of work did you individually do before the establishment of your studio? How much experience in the industry did you have? Okay, so this is an interesting one for us. Kate and I are kind of similar. I personally come from a commercial construction background. So I used to do shop fitting and also build apartment buildings for a living. It didn't feed my creativity at all, and I didn't love the industry, but what it did do is teach me how to project manage the delivery of a building or a shop fit out in very small turnaround times. And so and music has always been a very big part of my life, and a friend of mine said, well, why don't you put on concerts for a living? That would be a great way to use your project management skills, but in a scenario that you're going to enjoy. And so I did that and just started the studio and started in the events game, and I started by building things for event companies. So I would build the bar, or I would build those little elements that would support event companies, and now we compete with those same event companies, which is really exciting. And along the way of my journey, Kate was introduced. And
yeah, I come from a fashion design background, so that's what I studied, and I worked in the industry for almost 10 years. And then the GFC happened, and that industry, pretty much the bottom fell out of it in Australia anyway. And I also wanted to do something that was a little less repetitive, which I definitely got in events. Every single day, every single project is completely different.
New challenges always.
Yeah, which I love. So I was a bit nervous about changing industries at first, because I thought, I don't know what I'm doing, but I realized pretty quickly that you can apply your creative knowledge and skills to other industries and other disciplines. It's just about understanding the practicality. So when, working with someone like Pete, who understood, very, very well the limitations and boundaries that you have to work within, and just after experience of sort of learning that more and more, it wasn't as daunting as what I originally thought it was going to be.
And to give you some insight, our design team is made up of, is led by a traditional fashion designer. We then have an artist, an illustrator, and 3D designer. We have a brand specialist.
Yeah,
textiles designer.
Spatial designer who also has done product design, jewelry design. It's a mixed bag. Yeah, which we really like, because it means everybody's approaching it from a different perspective, and you get a more interesting result, I think, than what you would potentially if you had all people who were specializing in experiential design. You sometimes can get stuck in your own formula or what you've done before, especially when you've got really fast-paced deadlines.
We found a lot of our competitors as well have a stylistic approach to their creative. So they will style a place to look beautiful, whereas our team actually design with intent every element that talks to the brand message, and that's been a bit of a point of difference for us. I'll keep going through the questions here. You mentioned a big team of collaborators and networks. How did we develop those? Slowly. I've been in the game now for almost 9 years, and it's taken time, a lot of lessons, some expensive ones with some suppliers that talk a big game and then under-delivered. And unfortunately, within what we do, and I think most jobs as you go through your career, you're going to find that you're going to make mistakes along the way. You're going to pick the wrong person to work with, and you're going to just need to make sure that you don't allow that to derail you from your objective and where you're headed. I think that's a really important thing. And then when you do find a collaborator that you absolutely love and that you just get along with, you look after them. You don't negotiate on price. Whatever they need to do their part, you pay that for them. You pass that on to your client. You make sure you look after your supply chain really, really well, so that if ever there is a time, and in the events world it happens a lot, that something happens on site or you need something, they're a phone call away and they're going to answer the phone every time. So it is, unfortunately, it's an experience thing. It takes time, and you will make mistakes on that journey.
I see there's one here about after we've finished our projects, you get to experience them and be a part of your creations. To be honest, I often want to get off-site as soon as possible because there's been so much blood, sweat and tears put into it. And for me, I'm usually fried by the time the event goes live. There's also, a lot of very excited guests there, and you're not necessarily on that same level of energy. So we do sometimes get the opportunity, like Pete and I have been able to enjoy the NGB Gala, which has been great.
But we do an event, the Vogue Fashions Night Out event, and that event bump in starts on a Tuesday at 9 p.m. and it finishes on Thursday at 11 a.m. And as our biggest event, I oversee that bump in. I would probably get a couple of hours each night and work all the way through. So as soon as that event is handed over, I hand over to the operations team. I go straight to the hotel and sleep, and then come back for the pack down. So
and sometimes we have back-to-back bump-ins, like Shandon and Glen and Signet. We flew from Melbourne straight to site to Sydney to bump in another event. So by the time it goes live, you kind of like, this is amazing. I'm going to bed now.
Yes, enjoy. Hand it over to them. Interested in the vision behind your studio? You mentioned upskilling. What are some examples of how your team is upskilled and how you recommend students do this? I guess this is a really great question for the current climate. So to give you some transparency on us, as you're probably all aware, events were basically ruled out for the rest of the year. And so from what we do on a day-to-day basis, our business was very much affected. Especially within the events division. Now, we do the content production, which is more digital production, and we've obviously upskilled in that section of delivering that, and we're focusing on that. But also during this time, a lot of people are using the word pivot. We're using the word evolve, and our design teams have been upskilling in a number of ways, from learning about sustainability, understanding designing for the new future with COVID and health and risk and safety practices in place.
Also just 3D design, like one of our designers is really interested in it. So she's just teaching herself how to do it and upskilling at that. And yeah, we're putting together full plans on how to create a more sustainable output and more sustainable studio in general. So we are doing a lot of brainstorming of what the new event formats might look like, how we're going to balance that traditional familiar experience with something that is quite new and different in a way that's not jarring to a consumer. So we've been spending a lot of time doing R&D.
From a production perspective, the producers have been talking with councils a lot to see what the impact is on our communities and how we can service and help them re-establish safety within community from operational perspective. And how do we recommend students do this? I mean, the same way we do. I think being open-minded about the fact that you know what your skill set is, but that's not what your limitation is. So whatever your skill set is, whatever your practice is that you are really, really solid at, take interest in other aspects and develop those on the side. The 3D design that we're talking about is forming a massive part of our business moving forward. And that's because one of our lead designers came to us and said, hey, I've got this idea. How about we try and do this? And so to upskill is to be curious about different things that you're not great at and acknowledging you're not great at and just going after them and just keep interested.
I mean, I was self-taught in Adobe Suite before I came on board. So it's just like finding something you're interested in and just spending time on it. And then you'll hone in on a craft and it will all start to make sense, I think.
I love this question. How do we reach out to be a part of your company and do you offer internships? The answer is yes, awesome. We're always open to talking to the next gen of designers coming through. We are very accessible. We're open to emails or you can find the info email on our website. And Emma, I'm happy for you to share contact. But we were working with UNSW design faculty is it the PEP placement?
Yeah.
And so we had our first at the beginning of this year. Unfortunately, that's been cut short with COVID, but we're hoping that will come back soon. And our mission is to definitely create that as an environment for you guys at UNSW.
Can I ask Pete and Kate on that question, what do you look for when you do look at student portfolios, and what is it that really stands out to you? Because, you know, we might have, you might have 200 applications sitting on your desk on Monday morning, but what would you look for, and what would it be that would really make you pick that portfolio up and look further?
Well, Kate will answer. I guess Kate can answer that from the portfolio perspective. One of the ones I would just use as an example is one of our designers here got a job. Well, she got the job based on her skill set, but was kind of brought to the front of the line because we put the job ad up, but the job ad had a bunch of people respond. However, I received a personal email from this person. She found me as a contact, and she emailed me all the reasons why, and I'll get Kate to go through the details, but the fact that she took an effort to understand who we were, what we were about, and come to the top, put her at that top of the list. So,
and it never hurts to follow up as well, because sometimes, yeah, you do have just like an inundated inbox and you miss people, and it doesn't hurt to follow up. But I think for me, what I look for in a portfolio and application is something that's been considered design-wise. You'd be surprised how many designers apply for design roles and their CVs are not designed, and I don't even look at it at all. As soon as I open it, I would rather you have your own flair, even if it's not 100% on brand, but it says something about you and is considered. But beyond that, as far as the portfolio, I think I want to understand the thinking behind, like the creative rationale behind your work. Sometimes there's really beautiful imagery and it looks like a beautiful project, but I don't understand why the choices have been made. And those who are able to articulate that and show the way of thinking, I find the most interesting as far as applications. Yeah.
It's also really important to shed some light on why you're approaching this job. Like, what is it about, let's say, Studio Messa? What is it about Studio Messa that you're appealing to? Why do you want to work there? What is it about our work that you've liked? So that we understand that you're not just, we're not one of 100 applications.
You're not just
There's a reason you want to be here.
Yeah. And also showing a bit of personality in your cover letter or intro email, but just making sure it's still got a sense of humbleness. Because, you know, as fresh grads, you don't want to sort of come in too hot. Otherwise, it can be a little alarming.
Looks like there's a couple more questions there. I'm not sure if you guys can see, and we've got a couple more lined up.
Do we do travel to our events overseas? Yes. When the budgets allow for it, we have in London. London's been a newer place for us. We've only been there for about a bit over a year, and with the current landscape, we've actually over in London with what's going on, that there is sort of in hibernation for the minute. But yes, definitely travel overseas. I would say we travel more here. I would say when Kate and I were on early stages, we would be within every 2 weeks we were in Melbourne for something, because Melbourne does seem to be the hotspot for events, and a lot of brands are doing a lot of cultural activity down there. And the reason for the London office, we actually, Charlotte Gunstone, who leads our London office, worked with us for our first year of Studio Messa here as our event director. She's from the UK and she went back there. She'd been in events for 10 years and we enjoyed working with her, and we just saw an opportunity to take the brand over with her. So we thought we'd have a go. And
we also, like for me, the interest was in, I think, broadening the creative scope. Australia is still quite a small market, you know, comparatively. So budgets are smaller, and often that also leads to a bit more of a conservative sort of approach from clients. Whereas, you know, the things you see over in Europe can be huge and so ambitious and experimental.
We were told by Grey Goose, who's a client of ours, that the yearly budget for Grey Goose in events in Australia is for one event in London.
Yeah, and with that you get to experiment and play with so many different you know, techniques and technology and that sort of thing. So I think for me it was really just wanting to expand the possibilities as well and just challenge ourselves more.
Yeah.
Is that?
Is it?
Oh.
Oh, there's more there. Okay. How do you establish your own studio and find your niche? Ooh.
I think it was kind of by accident.
Yeah, kind of a little bit. We were in events and we just started to, I guess, just get better at it and start to look at it as a bit more of an experience design rather than just a styling piece for a brand. And really, and then I think the timing of us really made it key, because as we started in this, experiential marketing was on the massive trend up, and we were able to ride that through.
Yeah.
How do you go from being individual workers to becoming a studio collective?
Pete just decided to start a studio and hire people, and then we also just grew quite organically, needed more people. Yeah, it was all very organic, but I mean, Pete was the one who had the guts to go, I'm gonna start a studio.
On. Yeah. need a little bit of money behind you, but money won't be the thing that stops you. Really, be tenacious, be persistent is the #1 thing I would say, and don't be scared to bring people on. It's not about making money at the beginning. It's completely the opposite. It's about winning clients over that are going to be clients for a lifetime. American Express and Vogue have been with us since we started Studio Messa. We are now assigned to Amex for the next 3 years as their experiential partner in Asia Pac. And so really harnessing relationships as a studio or as an agency, you are only as good as those relationships. So it's really important that they are fostered. I was fortunate enough to be able to do that whilst having someone like Kate as my right hand to deliver, and having a really good production team. And then I guess how do you grow? It's by making sure you make good choices with the people that you work with.
And then I see what kind of role do artists play in your studio. So that's there's a lot of different roles, like even just in-house, like visually representing our concepts in, you know, Photoshop, you know, that needs to have an artistic lens to it in order to create an emotional response to the client as they're looking through it. We also do engage like visual artists for brands that it makes sense to. So for instance, Bombay Sapphire's brand positioning is stir creativity. So they're very much aligned with visual art. So we try and engage local artists where we can, whether it's to create murals in venues or even on smaller scales, sort of print collateral. And we try and do it in a way that is, you know, is giving back to the artistic community as well. Because it can be quite a careful thing with big brands engaging local talent and making sure that it's beneficial for both parties. We also have, performance artists.
And I think for us, we also had an initiative start, which was Kate's vision, called the Studio Messa Atelier, which is our studio practice where our creative team, as well as our production team, but predominantly our creative team, one person from that team a week will go into our atelier and they're able to create and do whatever it is that they want to experiment with within that space. What that does for us as a business is it keeps our designers fresh and encouraged to like take on new challenges and literally make something just for the sake of making it and having fun and enjoying the idea of, you know, being creative is a really fun thing to do. But when you are working in quite quick turnaround times and you're commercializing it and you're getting paid to do the service, sometimes it's very difficult to hold on to that freedom of expression. So the atelier is our place where we can encourage the team and regenerate the team in that space. Yeah,
make sure that their sort of brain doesn't get too stuck on the one way of thinking. And also it just helps us to explore different, like when we do big events, we don't necessarily get our hands dirty as much. So it's nice to have that really tactile experience again. And sometimes you discover things that then do help with a large scale event. And
well, one of the team went in and played with aggregate and plaster and made these really beautiful kind of cut, what looked like stone pieces with beautiful shining like marbles and aggregate through it. And that ended up kind of informing some of our custom furniture for the NGV event. It was like, wow, that's a really nice finish. Let's see if we can get a supplier to actually take that and turn it into some furniture. So that was an example of where the atelier worked really well.
I've got a question for Pete.
Yes.
What would you tell your 19-year-old self, Pete, if you had the chance? Because remember, our students are around 19, most of them, the average age.
I would just say make more mistakes, get amongst it. Failure is the key to success. You cannot get here without it. And sometimes it's going to be super brutal and you're going to feel like you can't go on. So the number one thing about that then is persistence. So believe in yourself. No one ever gets to the top on a cruisy ride. In fact, it's the complete opposite. You're going to take, the more bumps you take and the more things you get up from. I know it's the old cliche of as many hits you can take and get up from is going to help you succeed. But yeah, to my 19-year-old self, I'd say take the hits. It's going to be fine. Yeah.
Thanks, Pete. And Kate, can I ask you, would you, one piece of advice that you would give the this next gen group of designers?
I guess like be courageous and also take responsibility for, I think, changing, like I think especially at the moment, like changing the world. You know, it sounds really big, but you know, at the moment with COVID, the things change so quickly, and the world relied upon creative thinkers to find solutions for unprecedented times and moments, whether it was product or just like how we lived as societies. And I think just valuing that, it all starts with that creative idea and notion, and then that trickles down and can really shape the world like in interesting ways, even if it seems small at the time.
Yeah.
That's great advice. There's a really nice comment here, guys, I thought I'd highlight. It says, you've been so generous and insightful, practical and genuine with your advice, and they've learned so much, so thank you. And I think that really does definitely sum up how we feel about you being here and being so generous with your time. What's really interesting, I think, about this conversation that is, despite the glamour and the beauty of these incredible events, there is a hell of a lot of hard work. It sounds like you guys don't miss a deadline, and that's what you keep doing what you do because of your reputation and your reliability and your hard work as a design studio, and that is a really important part of your practice. Look, I'd really like to, we're kind of coming right to the end now, but thank you both so much for such, such a fantastic and insightful conversation with our students. I don't think I've seen so many questions come up on the chat, so clearly you've really engaged and inspired our cohort. So on behalf of all of us, thank you so much, and hopefully we can keep you up to date with how our students are going with their projects, and particularly this hybrid brief that they're working towards.
Yeah, that would be great.
We'd love to see anything you guys are working on, and thanks for having us as part of it, and thanks for listening to us as well. It's always nice to be talking to the younger generation coming through. So good luck everyone with your projects and your schools, and hopefully we'll see you on the other side somewhere, maybe at Messa, who knows.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Kate. I think you might be getting 200 personal emails. All right. Thanks again, Studio Messa, and thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you hopefully very soon. Okay, thanks all.
Bye-bye.